Text your dirty tax secrets to Tatiana. Don't worry, she won't tell anyone. Everyone's got 'em, right? Tatiana Sawyer is a tax and business strategist, CPA, and MBA who makes your life less taxing. She helps to reduce your taxes legally so that you make and keep more of your money. Get her second opinion discovery without leaving your current accountant. She'll identify missed opportunities and recommend a cure. Visit TatianaSawyer.com to learn more.
Dr. Emy Tafelski is a licensed therapist turned transformational coach who guides women done being who they've been told they should be and ready to stand in their unapologetic authenticity. She helps them break free from the chains holding them down so they can rise, finally feeling good enough and knowing who the F-U-C-K they actually are. Her work stems directly from her own healing journey with unapologetic authenticity that begun with countless mornings waking up despairing with the thought, is this going to be my life for the next 50 years? It is her mission to help women break free from the boxes they've been forced into so they can live life as they truly are, experience freedom, joy, and confidence. She believes that authenticity is the magical elixir that can heal us and the world around us.
Hi, I'm Casey, and right here beside me is Kelsey. We are licensed professional counselors, mothers, entrepreneurs, and besties. We know firsthand what it's like to wake up one day and think, how in the heck did I wind up here?
Through our own journeys of self-discovery, we found that joy is something that has to be pursued through internal work. Now we are on a mission to help women from all walks of life understand themselves more so they can have real lasting joy.
Join us every Thursday to hear fun and insightful interviews with experts who can point you toward self-discovery and fulfillment.
Okay, welcome back, besties. We have an awesome guest here today.
I have to ask this question. I know I just asked you, Kelsey, to start us off, but how did you wind up here?
I've been a therapist for 13 years, something like that. And I started doctoral work in 2017, and my mom died during my first semester in doctoral work. And it shifted everything I did afterward. There was something in me that sort of thought she had cancer, so it wasn't like a surprise, but there was something in me that thought that I would be fine, which is silly when I think about it now because I was definitely not fine and ended up taking a year off from therapy work just because there was no way to sit in front of others and hold space and be the container for other people because I had no container. And in the shattering of grief, I took this long journey to reweave myself back together. And in that journey, I realized how much of what directed my behavior wasn't actually mine. And so it was a huge journey of authenticity and soul work and spiritual healing. And when I came out of it, I realized that I wanted to do deeper soul work with people. It was a calling to do deeper soul work with people instead of therapy or in addition to therapy or something like that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So you kind of mentioned, but do you do both? Are you still practicing?
I am still practicing. I have a teeny tiny practice. I've not put any of my energy into it, right? I have a very tight velvet rope policy, and the clients that I have are my absolute favorite people to work with. And we're doing the kind of work that feeds my soul and feeds their souls. But all of my energy is going into growing the soul guidance practice because I really feel like authenticity is how we can heal the world. So that's my jam.
I love it.
So you took a year off of therapy, like actually practicing, right? What did you do in the interim of that?
I did a hell of a lot of spiritual healing work. So I have a forthcoming book that really goes deeply into the details of this, but I did a lot of laying on the floor, surrounded by crystals, crying and asking a goddess to hold me. So my spiritual practice is a goddess-based embodied spiritual practice. So it was a lot of resting into goddess as a mother, since I no longer had a mother here on this earth, and a lot of like sacred tea ceremony and energy work, and anything that called to me, I just answered.
So I don't know a lot about that. Tell me more.
Yeah. Is there something specific that you want that you want more of?
I know that's a terrible question, a very vague, open-ended question. But when you're talking about like goddess work and just all of it, I mean, it's, you have to remember too, like we're up here in Kentucky, so it's not like there's a lot of people going around talking about this. Although we do have one of the therapists on our team. She's pretty into all of it. And so I hear about it, I hear from her. Shout out to Shayla, but I don't know, maybe just a little bit more. It's just so foreign to me. I don't even know the question to ask.
Sure. I was raised Christian, but it never felt right in my soul. Like it felt very patriarchal and very not affirming for me as a woman. And I don't know. So there's this journey starts like in a lot of different places, because even before my mom died, we went to New Jersey, where I'm originally from, to clean out some of my crap. And I found books that I had as a teenager that were goddess-based spirituality books that I didn't remember that I ever had. So my journey with goddess started a very long time ago, even though I didn't remember that it started. But about 8 months before my mom died, I was randomly searching Pinterest for goddess tattoos, which is not like I have a lot of tattoos, but every single one of them has been extremely meaningful and extremely well planned and extremely well thought out and has represented an impactful learning in my life. So to randomly search tattoos on Pinterest was uncharacteristic. And that led me down a journey of like reading more about goddess, and it answered a longing in me of like wanting to see the divine or needing to see the divine with a female energy or female face, like to see myself in the divine and the divine in me. And so I just started absorbing and learning, and it's a very embodied practice. So yes, there's books and yes, there's teachings, but it's really, it shows up like within me, and it's very intuitively based and guided. So I call it a live relationship with spirit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a good answer.
I'm curious, when was it? I like to call it when like all of the stars aligned, or when you knew that where you are now is where you're supposed to be. And maybe there was like a point in time, or maybe it was a huge chunk of time. And we kind of heard bits and pieces of that time period. But was there ever a like day that it all just like clicked for you? Like, this is what I should be doing. I have what I've been missing.
Specific to spirituality or just my work in the world?
Let's do your work in the world.
So I used to own a group psychotherapy practice. In the middle of getting my doctorate, my mom's inheritance came through for me, and I was able to like purchase a property that I decided that I should make a group psychotherapy practice. Like this somehow was the thing I should do. I'm not quite sure what I was thinking, but that's neither here nor there. We grew quickly during COVID, and I ended up with a total of 8 employees, 6 therapists, and 2 admin staff, and phased myself out of an office while simultaneously trying to also start like this soul guidance, spiritual guidance business, and it wasn't working. 3 of my therapists gave notice over the course of 3 months. And after the 3rd one, I sat at my kitchen table and I said, this is 100% not what I am supposed to be doing. Like paying attention to numbers, being anxious all the time. This is sucking my soul dry for very little return. And so I decided right then and there that I was going to close the practice. And I did. I gave everyone 2 months notice, and I was like, I'm sorry, I love you all, but I can't.
Yeah, it's no longer serving you, and it wasn't serving you.
Yep, exactly.
Whenever I was reading through your bio earlier, and I read where it said that you help women break free from the boxes that they've kind of been forced into. Can you tell us just a little bit about what that kind of work looks like?
I would love to. I will tell you a story about my own breaking free. I conceive of the soul as a tapestry with threads of different colors that are woven throughout the tapestry, sort of making you. And some of those threads came from trauma. Some of those threads came from cultural messaging, like how patriarchy often tells us that we're less than. And so we have to overwork and work harder and hustle and do all the things in order to be good enough and lovable. And so that's like woven throughout there. And then some family messaging, of course, that's throughout there. And some threads that are just your brilliant, shiny, powerful, authentic essence. When I work with people, I specifically work with them on a guided visualization journey to unweave those threads that don't serve them. So for me, one of them was disordered eating that after my mom died, I realized that it was hers. Like I had struggled to heal this my whole life and it just wouldn't until I finally realized like, oh shit, that's not mine to carry. So I literally in a journey unwove it from my tapestry and released it. And it changed everything. So it's like that, like specifically, we're going to take this one thing of not enoughness or unworthiness or whatever and remove it from your tapestry and replace it with something that serves you better.
Yeah. I had a therapist that I was seeing a couple of years ago. I was writing my book and she actually used a very similar metaphor. And she didn't go into the detail that you just did, but she talked about how this has become the tapestry of your life and, you know, talking about that. So that was kind of cool to hear you say that. Do you find that when you're working with people that sometimes they don't even know that these things have been woven into their tapestry? Like they're just kind of blind to it? And then
yes. Working with me, I have a bunch of pre-work that you would do. Like if you signed on to do the soul weaving experience, I have a workbook that's pre-work. And I'm actually offering a 4-week mastermind where this is the exact work that we do. We look for those threads and the themes and the patterns that have been present throughout your life that are standing in the way that aren't really explicit yet. And so what we'll do in this 4-week mastermind is work to make them explicit. And so once they're explicit, then we can do the work of the unweaving. And the second piece of that is reclaiming the lost parts of the self that you've cut off because you learned it wasn't okay to be who you are. Or other things like that.
I'm curious, are there certain themes that show up in a cultural way that like everyone kind of shares those themes or they're really common?
Yes. It's hard for women in a patriarchal society to be authentic because we have message after message after message after message telling us who we should be and who we shouldn't be and how we should look and how we shouldn't look and how we should show up and not show up. And so a lot of the messages are about, most people I think would call it self-worth. I call it worthiness, right? Like this idea that I'm not good enough, not worthy of love, that I have to prove to you that I'm lovable, prove to you that I'm worthy of your love, like work harder, be more, show more. That's like a lot of the repeating theme, right? External validation, people pleasing. Essentially, those are all the things that move us further away from who we really are, right? Because you're not stopping to check in and figure out like, what is true to me? What do I really want / need right in this moment? And it's mostly unconscious, right? But like, how can I show up for this person to show that I am enough? I am worthy. I am perfect. I am whatever.
Yeah. So when you were talking, the first thing that came to mind, and this might be on a smaller scale, but like there was this moment in time where my professor, we were in a synchronous group and she said, Kelsey, why do you always apologize for taking up space? Like, I'm going to challenge you here. And that was like a moment in time that I really had to switch. And I still do it. I'm still guilty of it. But I think so often, even when I'm teaching interns or anything, they're always apologizing, especially females, for taking up space or saying something that is very, maybe a question or something that is probing them to learn. Just something I notice and I need to work on is not apologizing for taking up space.
Yeah, totally. That is definitely one of the, falls into that category for sure.
Catch myself doing that as well. Not so much anymore, but definitely my early 20s, my mid 20s, probably up into my 30s. I caught myself if I was in a group setting where I had to ask a question or answer a question or speak at all, I caught myself just rapidly trying to answer as quickly as I can in as few words as I possibly can. Like you said, just to not take up that space. Cause I remember as a kid, even at home and at school, people don't listen. And so if you're going to say something, you got to say it fast and you got to say it direct. It's got to be you know what I mean? So I even brought that into my adult life, and obviously I'm over it now because I talk and it's usually very long-winded. I'm overcompensating now from that. But yeah, I think, and that's so true of women, especially when you put women in a room with men. If it's all women, I don't notice it so much. But put men in the room, everything shifts.
Yeah, for sure.
You mentioned your 4-week mastermind. And 1, could you tell us the link? 2, could you tell us just a little bit more about it? Because I actually think I have a therapist that's in a leadership position on our team that I would love to send to that because I think they would get a lot out of it.
Yeah. So it starts April 24th and it is the 4 subsequent Wednesdays, and it's an hour. It's 4 p.m. Eastern time, virtual, obviously. Basically, we're going to work through a workbook, introspection and reflection on 4 different sections of the workbook. So participants will work on section A, for instance, and work through the questions. And then the 1-hour meeting will be hot seat guidance based on, what came up for you, how you're feeling, where you're stuck, what you've noticed, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And the cost is $297 for the 4 weeks. And if you take the class and decide to sign up with me for my big program, which is the Soul Weaving Experience, which is one-on-one, you get the $300 back.
Nice. Okay.
Because this is the pre-work for that, right? It stands alone, but it also is the pre-work. So
yeah,
pay for it twice.
Yeah, that's awesome. We decided, when was that, Kelsey? A couple months ago, that we needed to do more for some of our clinical staff in terms of their own self-discovery and understanding. And so we're actually doing a summer retreat for our staff that we'll be working on some of these things. Obviously not exactly what you're doing because it's your thing, but the person that I have that's going to be hosting this retreat is the one I would like to send to your workshop.
Oh, fun. Yeah, I would love that.
Really love it. I'm thinking of Charlotte, Kelsey, if you want to.
Yeah, I totally knew that's who you're talking about. I think we all need to kind of go on what we are calling it is who am I as a therapist retreat, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in every aspect of our life, sometimes we need to reflect and say, who am I really? And what does that look like? And what do I want it to look like? And what are the things that are holding me back or putting me in a box?
And knowing that's fluid, what I want and who I feel like I am today is not necessarily the same as it was even a month ago. And I think that there's a lot of shame that goes into that society shames women in a lot of ways for changing our minds, growing introspectively and personally and all of these things. And it's just really unfortunate. And I love that you are out there taking a stand. I don't know if you've read my book yet, but there's a whole section in there about the patriarchy. And I can really get going on that, man.
Same.
Kids go to a Christian school. It's a private school for reasons other than, wanting them to learn about the Bible. It's small, it's private. It's got a different vibe, but man, I can really get on one. Some of the things that they say and do. I'm this morning I was marching downstairs. I was like, let's go. We're going to the school. Just because it's backward, let's talk to dad. Let's only talk to dad. And let's just, I can't. I'm maybe this is not where we're meant to be.
Yeah, don't come down here, especially if you want actual history. But
yeah, I get it. I know. It's so hard. And I think it just puts even more pressure just to make sure that you educate your kids and yourself and the way you want them to perceive power dynamics and society and all of that. I'm constantly preaching it to my daughters. It's just, if we don't do it, who's going to, you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
I just really appreciate this conversation, and it needs to be talked about more. I think we could probably do a whole series on this.
Yeah. If you will send me a little blurb about the mastermind, I'll send it to all of my therapists. And if I have any more that want to join, I'll sign them up, because I think you really cannot be an effective therapist if you don't sort all this stuff out.
I agree. And that was part of the platform when I did have a group practice, was being focused on our own healing journey as the foundation for being a therapist in the world.
100%. Thank you so much for being on.
Thanks for having me.
We will, I'm sure, have you back, and we'll be in touch, and we'll get some of our folks signed up for your mastermind.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I would love to have them.
Okay, later, besties. This has been awesome.
Before we go, one podcast I'm loving right now is The Mental Health Entrepreneur, hosted by our friend Rachel Harrison. Some of you may remember her episode early in our podcast career. She is an awesome person and has a wealth of information about mental wellness, trauma, business, and how we can all make a difference. Listen to the trailer now, and then head to our show notes to find the link and subscribe.
What if our communities had more creative options to support mental wellness? This is a question that I've been exploring as someone who's been in the mental health field for 25 years. As an entrepreneur myself, I've been having these conversations with people in government, with people in the nonprofit world, with people in the business world, and people in the mental health world. And here's what I know. We don't have the solution as it stands right now. All of the resources we have, all of the treatment options we have are full and overflowing. There are some creative new ideas happening here and there, but as a whole, we have more people that need support for their mental health than can get that support. And so it led me to this question of, what do we do? I don't have the answers, but my goal is to talk to other people who are doing creative things in their community to address mental wellness. And when I think about creative, innovative ideas, I think of entrepreneurs. They are the people that think out of the box. They are the people that do more with less. And so this podcast was started out of the idea that by having conversations with people that are innovating in the arena of mental health, we can all gain some inspiration. I hope that you'll join me each week as we drop a new episode, talking to entrepreneurs in all different areas, doing creative things to support mental wellness in their communities.
If you're enjoying our podcast and would like to hear more from us, leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts so we can keep making great content.
Talk to you later, besties.